Want to welcome you and thank you for joining our information session on our district hosts for track and field. We think it's going to be really important that for those of you who are hosting a district meet that we are very consistent. We conduct each meet in the same way. So we want to take some time to review the basics here. The very first thing is if you are hosting the district meet, make sure you notify the TAPS office so that we know where, when, and who is responsible for hosting this meet. Robert, why don't you talk to us about the district meeting?
All right, Steve, thank you very much. As you plan to host your district track meets around the state, you need to have a district meeting of ADs and coaches to plan all the details you need to make sure that the meet runs smoothly, that it's communicated to everyone in your district. Some of those things you need to consider: financial responsibilities. When and where are you going to host your meet? I know a lot of our district meets classifications might combine. For instance, a 2A district might combine with a 3A or 4A district and hold their meets together at one location. That does keep the cost down for everyone. If you have the ability to do that, just make sure all that's coordinated between both those districts and that you know what your financial obligations are going to be and how those costs are going to be split up among the schools. When you host a TAPS district or regional type of event, whether it's in track or anything else, please know it's not intended to be a fundraiser for the person that's doing all the work. We appreciate you volunteering and helping to do that, but those costs do need to be money in, money out, split equally among the schools. If you add it all up and divide it by the number of schools and pay an equal amount, that's one way to do it. You can do it by event entries. However you manage the meet, just make sure that your timer, your starter, all of your officials, the facility, awards, all those things are considered as you walk through that. Some of the things that you need to consider is when you have your meeting, assign all those pre-meet responsibilities for each school, who's getting awards, field event equipment that's necessary if it's not available at the facility. Hopefully it is. Who's going to do your timing for you, create your heat and your field sheets that will be needed to run your field events, and then create all that stuff that's needed when you time your running events. Food for coaches and volunteers, worker assignments, announcers, block setters, curve judges, field event officials, heat clerks, starters, start and finish clerks, whatever of those you need that can be performed by officials that you hire or your coaches within the district. Just make sure all that's addressed as you have those meetings. Assignments for the day of the meet. This is very important. How and when you check in, what your time frame and schedule is going to be for your meet, your implement weigh-ins, a scratch meeting if you have one. We'll talk about entries more here in just a minute. A trainer on site to help and assist with any needs there. Your field events, who's going to run those, that you have all that equipment information out there and that those results get back to your timer so they can be entered in your results. Your curve judges, obviously this one is one that's important in our relays. It does help tremendously if you're combining two districts from different classifications. I know it's very helpful if the 4As are running their relay, the 2A coaches are actually the curve judges there because they don't have a school involved in that and vice versa. You may or may not be able to do that, but that certainly is helpful from that perspective. Getting the hurdle set and taken down, that always takes a little time at every meet. And then where everybody's going to come in, go out, where the teams are going to set up, where your crowd's going to be, and then concessions, hopefully that's available for all the fans and spectators that you have there. And one of the most important things, we'll talk about it more at the end of this session, is finalizing those results from your district meets so they can be populated onto the regional meets. Who's doing your timing, make sure that's done in the right format or can be changed to the correct format for our regional meets, and then from our regional to state as well. How you're going to do the entries and how you're going to handle all that. Just make sure all that's discussed at your district meeting and communicated to everyone. TAPS track codes. Please make sure to do that, whoever's doing your timing. That's critically important because those results are going to migrate from the district to the regional meets and the regional to the state meets. And once they're in the system, they're much easier to handle. The last thing is discuss the rules enforcement and establish a rules committee. If you have any appeals, if you have any disqualifications, if you have any rules infractions that need to be discussed or addressed, make sure somebody there has a copy of the current track and field NFHS rule book. I know we often refer to that at our regional and state meets, and the officials do as well. That's your book to follow for all of those things that might come up. It's also good to have a copy of the TAPS bylaw specific to track. Those guidelines are in there. Somebody have a copy of those available in case you need to refer to them. And then your event rules. Tiebreakers, this is important for us, so please make a note of this. If you're, and we're going to talk about qualifiers here in a minute from your district to regional, but in a lot of our districts, the top 4 go from district to regional. We need to make sure that last qualifying spot, that 4th spot, if it's a tie, you need to break that tie at the district meet. It doesn't come into play much at all in the running events because they're all running at the same time, and so there's usually a clear 4th, 5th, or 6th place finisher. But in our field events, in the jumps and the throws, the horizontal jumps, the long and the triple, and then our throws, there's usually not a tie because it migrates back to that last throw, and there's usually not an identical number of feet and inches in those instances. But in our verticals, in our high jump, in our pole vault, there is a tiebreaker method for if jumpers go out at the same height. But if you work that back and you follow that rule and you're still tied, we need you to break that tie at the district meet. So if you got a tie for 4th in the high jump or the pole vault, you need to have a jump off. If you've gone through all the tiebreakers in the rule book and you're still tied, you need to have a jump off because we can't take 5 qualifiers to the next level, to regional or state. If you have any questions about that, reach out to us. It's really not that complicated. You just need to keep that in mind as you're hosting your meet. Make sure that you break those ties in the high jump and the pole vault. You need to do it while they're doing that event. Make sure whoever's running that event knows that you have to have those top 4 qualifiers if you have 4 qualifying, and that last qualifying spot does need to be broken. Fair effort rule. This comes up every year at all of our meets. That is explained in detail in the TAPS bylaws. Please have a copy of that with you. And basically what it is, if an individual scratches or fails to participate in a finals event, okay, it wouldn't apply to prelims. If you have prelims in some events at your district meet, it doesn't apply in prelims. But in a finals event, if you scratch, that individual is out for the rest of the meet. They cannot participate after that. So make sure you enforce that. It will be enforced at the regional and the state level. All right, Steve, let's change gears here. Let's talk a little bit about eligibility for students and coaches.
Thanks, Robert. Yeah, when you have your district planning meeting, it's really important that you discuss eligibility with all your schools in your district. First of all, you have your coach eligibility. Anyone who is involved in coaching at the district meet must be in rank 1 and must be eligible, and that's indicated by the color green. They need to have taken their teams courses. They need to also have signed their acknowledgement of rules. Secondly, all of your athletes need to be entered into rank 1, and they need to be eligible as well. Just remind your schools to double check that, double check their coaches' eligibility and their athletes' eligibility. That'll save you from all kinds of headaches and problems if you get to the regional meet. Also in your district meeting, you want to discuss several different types of dates. First of all, obviously the date for that district planning meeting. Make sure you reach out to everybody in your district and invite them to this. Don't leave anybody out. Have a deadline for entries. What date is going to be the last date that you can accept those entries, and then a scratch and replace deadline. Obviously, the big one is your date of your contest, and you need a rain and weather date in case you have bad weather. When is going to be the alternative there? But make sure you check that TAPS calendar for conflicts. You cannot hold a district meet on the same date as a TAPS championship meet, whether it's fine arts or tennis or golf. You don't want to be in conflict there because we have kids that are multi-sport athletes, or they may be involved in fine arts and athletics. Then have a date make sure you check the date for the final submission to the TAPS office for those dates.
All right, let's talk about some track specifics. Let's talk about entries. If we move that one more slide,
You want to go back and do that again?
Yeah.
I keep forgetting that I'm the one advancing this. Okay, so I just finished.
All right, let's look at some track specifics. Let's start with entries. Let's look at the entries that are available at your district meet. As you enter your athletes in your district meet, each school may enter only one boys team and one girls team. And in the individual events, you can have no more than 3 contestants from your school in individual events. So you can only have a maximum of 3 per school in an event. And you can have no more than 1 team in each relay. So that's the max you can have at your district meet. Don't exceed that. Some of you might be large enough to have a JV meet or something like that wouldn't be a part of this particular meet for results. But just remember, the max is 3 and then 1 relay. Individuals from your school can enter a maximum of 5 events. Within those 5 events, there is a maximum of 3 running events, including the relays. So no athlete can be in more than 3 running events, and that includes relays. But an athlete could compete in actually 5 field events. If they were talented enough to do that, they certainly could do that. So keep that in mind as you do your entries. The other thing you need to talk about at your district meet, this needs to be very clear. We know people get sick or have injuries, and there may be substitutions. You need to have a clear understanding, communicated to everyone. What's the last time, once you do your entries and they're in the system, what's the last time that you would allow any substitutions? So make sure that if that's prior to the meet, make sure everybody knows that deadline. If it's actually on the date of the meet, make sure everybody knows that deadline. We all who've been in track for a long time familiar with the scratch meetings we always had in the morning at the beginning of the meet. Just make sure it's very clear to everybody when that last cutoff is to make any changes, if at all, once all the entries have been done. And then the last thing would be substitutions after the meet for those advancing to the next round. So in hosting your district meet, your meet will be finished, your results will be in the system, and at some point, whoever did your timing is going to forward that to us so that it can be entered in the regional meet. If you're going to allow changes, make sure you know exactly when that is so that once that meet file is sent, if you had qualifiers that were not going to go on to the next round, go ahead and make those changes immediately after the meet and make sure that when that final meet file is sent on to us for regionals that it is correct and there be no changes after that. All right, Steve, let's talk about dress code.
Thanks, Robert. It's real important at your district organizational meeting that you do discuss dress code. Now, more detailed information can be found in Section 186 of the TAPS bylaws. That's the track and field section. But in general, make sure all your participants are wearing appropriate clothing. Minimum of a jersey and shorts, needs to be of uniform color and design, and obviously shoes. Shorts need to be worn that are not objectionable, must be worn over bodysuits, leotards, tights, closed leg briefs, or biker shorts. So shorts are required if they're wearing any of those kind of things. Obviously, we're following NFHS rules, and in NFHS rules, bare midriffs are not allowed. Contestants may not wear caps, toboggan. Also, contestants may not wear caps, toboggans, or headbands. They may use string, rubber bands, or tape to keep their hair in place. But any extra clothing and hats and gloves may be worn only in the case of inclement weather by the meet director's approval. Okay, let's talk a little bit about meet format. In terms of events, it's really important that you understand that all events must be held for athletes to qualify. If you only have one pole vaulter, they still must perform and must meet that minimum height to qualify. All the implements have to be weighed and certified, and all the pole vault waivers need to be signed and kept on file. Every jump and every throw must be measured and recorded. I know that at some meets you might not measure certain distances, but it's really important in terms of tiebreakers that all these jumps, all these throws are measured and recorded. For jumps and throws, you're going to have 3, then you're going to reorder them and have 3 more jumps or throws. And then just make sure so that things will go smoothly, that all your volunteers are accounted for, they're secured, they're ready. You need to have them ready to stage, set, and remove those hurdles. If you're doing long jump or triple jump, have rakers. Have somebody there to set and stretch the tape, somebody to retrieve discus, the shot, set the bar for high jump or for pole vault. Have those things ready to go so that your meet will run well and quickly. All the equipment that you might need, make sure that's secured and is available, whether it's tapes, racks, bars, rakes, brooms, all of those kind of things. Also, make sure you discuss the location for your teams. Where are your teams going to camp out when they're not competing? Where can tents be set up? One thing to discuss is whether or not you're going to allow athletes on the infield. It's really important to understand that athletes will not be allowed on the infield at the regional or at the state meet. We do have minimums. Make sure you discuss these minimums. Girls long jump, you may use a temporary marker board as determined by that event staff, and sometimes that is determined by the ability of those contestants or possibly weather. But make sure that you discuss what the standards at the state meet are going to be so that you know what these kids that are qualifying are going to have to face when they get to the regional or the state meet. For triple jump, the takeoff board for boys is going to be 32 feet, and the takeoff board for girls are going to be 22 feet. So you don't want somebody that, can't meet those standards, and then it's going to be embarrassing when they get to that regional meet. Obviously, if you have a certain facility issue or weather conditions, you might be able to adjust that. For high jump, you don't have a choice on this. The district meet, for all district meets, the minimum starting height shall be 4 feet for girls and 5 feet for boys. At regionals, the minimum starting height shall be 4 feet 2 for the girls and 5 feet 2 inches for the boys. Then at the state meet, the minimum starting height is 4'4" for girls and 5'4" for the boys. At pole vault, the district meet, your minimum starting height must be 6 feet for girls and 8 feet for boys. If you have something underneath that, if somebody goes 5 feet, they cannot qualify for the regional meet. At the regional meet, the minimum starting height is 6'6" for girls and 8'6" for boys, and at the state meet, the minimum starting height is 7 feet for girls and 9 feet for the boys. For relays, make sure that any of your athletes that compete in relays are listed and they're verified before running that event. Make sure you check this for accuracy. Sometimes we have some problems with this. Make sure that the athletes who competed are the ones that are listed on your final results.
When we look at team scoring for our track meets, this is how the scoring is listed, and so follow this with regard to the scoring. If you are, you're making obviously team awards at the district level like we do at regional and state level. So for individual events, those are your points that are awarded for each place, and then for your relays, those points are doubled. So keep that in mind as you go through that and make those awards at your district level. So that will be the expectation at the next level. Officials, you do need officials for your district meet. You need to secure neutral officials where possible. Certainly you need a starter. It's recommended certainly to have a starter and a backup starter as well. Coaches will probably, for most of your district meets, need to be assigned to run various field events. Make sure they have knowledge of the rules of that event. It would be great to have your rule sheet on a clipboard there along with their results sheet. And certainly, as I mentioned earlier, somebody at the meet needs to have a copy of the TAPS rules for track and field and for the NFHS rules, that rule book. If there are any issues, make sure there's a process to address those and move on. And then curve judges, obviously this is where some controversy can occur in the relays. Those exchanges and those events happen quickly. There's a lot of bodies moving around in a short amount of space there. So make sure your curve judges are experienced at doing that. It certainly helps to have a judge on each end of the exchange zone, on the incoming and the outgoing end of the exchange zone, and all of those helps tremendously to have that, so you've got eyes on it, and have multiple coaches in there if you can, to ensure, like I mentioned earlier, it would certainly help if two districts are teaming up to have curve judges be coaches from the other classification that's not running in that particular meet. I know a lot of our districts can't afford to hire multiple officials, but if you can, it's great to have, in addition to your starter and backup starter, it's great to have somebody overseeing field events, and it's great to have a meet referee overseeing running events as well. And then certainly at the district level, you need to have that committee, that rules committee, that'll make final determinations in that respect. With regard to coaches and coaching, as Steve mentioned earlier, make sure your coaches are team certified in TAPS, and then make sure that as they go throughout the day, make sure that they are assisting as much as possible. We do know that they are coaching as well, so they are bouncing around a lot, but just make sure everybody is helping and cooperating with that. And with regard to the crowd and the parents, certainly, hopefully you're at a place where they have bleachers, they have concessions, they have those kind of things. We do know that they will, when you're running your field events, the parents and fans will be right there next to the event, but just make sure that you have volunteers who are helping control all of that and keep it safe. Steve, let's talk about advancing from our district to our regional and state meets.
Okay. The advancement of your athletes to the regional and state meets depends on your classification. For 1A and 6A, they will qualify straight to the state meet at the district meet. The North District will get the top 4 to the state meet, and the South District will get the top 4 to the state meet. 2A through 4A, Districts 1, 2, 3, and 4, the top 4 go to the regionals, and then for District 5A, District 1, top 3 go to the North Regionals. District 2, top 3 go to the North Regionals. District 3, just the top 2 go to the North Regionals. Then District 4 and 5 and 5A, the top 4 go to the South Regionals.
All right, thank you, Steve. Those qualifying numbers are, we're in the second year of our current alignment. They're consistent with what we did last year. And in 5A, they have 5 districts. So the reason those numbers aren't the same as everything else, that's based on the number of schools in those respective districts. And those are contained in the bylaws as well. Just make sure your timer knows that, so that as they prepare those results, that we know, and we have all the information on the number of qualifiers. Let's talk about the submission of those results. As we look at whoever times your particular district meet, they will be given information in advance of their meet, what they'll need to do, the format of the meet, what it'll need to be able to do and be converted into high tech, and how that works. Becky Blauser, who has done this several years for us, she does a great job of communicating with all the timers from our district meets, getting those files and getting that information ready to populate our regional meets, and then we do the same from regional to state. And remember, we say here top 6 places certified to the TAPS office. We'll get that complete meet file and we'll see what's in there. But remember those tiebreakers for those last qualifying spots. Make sure you break those ties. Make sure you use only the TAPS school codes. And if you have any questions about that, reach out to us. PDF of all your results, and then a high-tech ready file. Becky can help your timers work through that and make sure those files are received in a format that they can be used for the next level. There's a lot of information there that will be covered when Becky communicates with the timers, and the timers usually have done this before and they're familiar with that. If you have any questions, please reach out. If files cannot be converted, they will not be accepted. Somebody on your end is going to have to figure out how to make sure those files are compatible and can be ready to move to the next level. So that information is there. If you have questions, reach out. We can help you with that. With regard to submission of results, dropping an event after a district meet, there will be a TAPS deadline. We'll have that information out to you for that. There will be an online form to do that. And then at your district meet, as you finish your district meet, if you have an athlete that qualifies in something, but you know already they're not going to be able to advance to the regional meet, make sure to notify that coach of the next qualifying athlete, and then make sure we know about that so we have the right entries moving into the regional meet.
We do want to thank you for joining us and watching this and gathering all of this information. It is really critical that all of our districts, when you're hosting their meet, are consistent and they're running things the same way across our state. If you have any questions, go to our website, www.taps.biz. Click on the track page. You can get there by clicking on athletics and then selecting track. There's a lot of information there for you. If you have any questions, just reach out to us at info@taps.biz or call 254-947-9268. Thank you, and we will see you at regionals.